You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, episode 22. This week on the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, we continue our duck profile segment and featured the Green-Winged Teal. And Dan and I are also going to take you, the listeners' questions as we devote a segment to the questions that we've received and spend some time answering those for you. All right, welcome to the 22nd episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. I'm Josh Palm, here to take you through this episode. And we got a good one lined up for you today. We are going to profile the Green-Winged Teal, which is, a duck that a lot of guys in our, that listen to our show harvest, as we've seen from pictures and kill reports and stuff like that. So it should be a good one as far as the feature is concerned. And then we're going to devote a segment to the questioners that we've received from you, the listeners. So these are things that we've received via email and Facebook and Twitter and via our hotline and things like that. So we're going to take some time and answer a few of the better ones that we think we've received and share those with everybody here on the show. I mentioned Facebook and Twitter, so there's a lot of different ways that you can interact with us here at the show. You can call us on our hotline, 724-609-FOWL. That's 724-609-3695. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. We've recently, super excited, launched an Instagram account. So check us out on Instagram. As always, you can find us at hpoutdoors.com. You can shoot us emails at info@hpoutdoors.com. You find all of our stuff at iTunes, where you can leave a 5-star rating and review. And we've also got our HP Outdoors newsletter that we're now sending out. If you are interested in receiving that, you can go onto our website and also our Facebook page to sign up for that. And then we also still have our listener survey going on that you can find on our Facebook page and website, where we give you the opportunity to provide us a little bit of feedback and some input on things that you might want to see us cover on the show. So helping me do all of this, he's number one in your program. He's number one in your heart. Dan Harushka. Dan, how are you?
Doing well, my friend. How about yourself?
I'm good, man. I'm doing good. We've had a lot going on here with you and I and HP Outdoors in general. We've been kind of all over the place and doing a lot of different things. And, probably the biggest of which is we were up on the Maryland Eastern Shore here a weekend ago or so. And, kind of did our annual guided hunt up there and had a really good time. It was great seeing you and great, spending time in the blind. And, we got to see quite a few birds up there and then had a pretty good hunt. I think, definitely one as far as bird volume is, one of the better hunts that we've ever had up there.
Yeah, for, always texting the guides and seeing what we're getting into, what they're seeing and their scouting and how they're doing, not a lot of birds here. And I mean, they say it every time and we go down there and it's, more birds than I've ever seen in my life. And, saying that we probably saw, I don't know, a couple thousand canvasbacks when they said, they just started showing up Monday and we got down there and hunted Friday. And, the first day, probably 1,000 geese, the second day and a couple more thousand. I mean, it's an incredible place down there. I love it. Yeah.
The biggest takeaway for me when we go up there to hunt is, the canvasback flight that we saw on Friday morning was just, I don't know if there's places else in the world that, you can go and see flights like that of canvasbacks. It was just, massive formations of cans for as far as you could see at times. It was just incredible, and massive flocks working us. We're talking 40 to 50 sometimes, canvasback flocks working our spread. And the thing that I noticed about this was, a lot of times it was tough to find a hen in any of these flocks. It's just drake after drake. Just really kind of cool stuff to see. Just really, really a neat experience. And, as far as the geese action and the goose hunting, where we're at, a lot of times, you get set up and you do your scouting and your birds fly for an hour, maybe 2 hours type of thing, where, you got a finite window to really kind of capitalize. when we were up there, man, the birds flew almost all day long. There was a little bit of lull in the action between like 12 and 2:30 for lunch. But other than that, the flight was pretty constant, and, the birds were tough to work. It was definitely challenging, but, it always feels like a more exciting hunt, because there's birds in the air all the time. And our second day we hunted, primarily geese exclusively. And, we ended up one short of a limit, but with the amount of birds that we had working us and kind of in the area, I felt like we killed more birds than that, you know what I mean? Just because the action was just so frequent and so heavy at times.
Yeah, it's just nonstop. And then, the amount of snows that we saw the first day, and, we had a chance at them, but, a couple landed at the neighboring property, and the guy started blasting at them. Didn't kill any, but they all kind of scattered. But yeah, like you said, even you said that the flight kind of slowed down around lunchtime, but we came back to our spread and we had to kick birds out of it. So there had to be some moving, during that period. It's just incredible. It's like you said, it's nonstop. Where here it's a good morning and evening and, nothing in between, but I love going down there for the scenery and just watching the birds. It's just a waterfowl heaven, really.
Yeah. And it's cool for us because, that's the closest true sort of migration area. The Atlantic Flyway is, not one of the most, high populated for ducks and that kind of thing, but there's certain pockets where you can go and see great flights. There's certain areas you can go and see great, numbers of, black ducks and that kind of thing. And, there's areas you can go for snows, and you can go to the Eastern Shore for snows, but, the Maryland Eastern Shore for Canada geese is just, it's as good as it gets. And, it's cool just to sort of be there and experience that. So, that's what keeps us going back every year. And, we talked about picking an outfitter and a guide on the show a couple weeks ago or last week, whenever that was. And, the guys that we go with, they didn't let us down. Those guys put the time in. Both days that we hunted with them, we were in the blind from sun up to sundown. And the second day we hunted over just a mass of canvas or Canada decoys, a full trailer full of floaters and a full trailer full of full bodies on the shore around the pit that we were hunting. So really impressive spread, just awesome experience to hunt. Can't say enough good stuff about, the guys up there. And, it's for those reasons that I'm already looking forward to getting back again next year,
I hear you. And that's another, they say they didn't have any ducks down there. And then, the first setup on the second day of the hunt, there's probably one knot of, 1,500 mallards and black ducks mixed in. It was, I don't know. We don't see it around here. So it's just very, very nice to go down there. And I appreciate that for sure. Yeah.
And it makes me jealous of everyone that lives in these flyways that just has, way better waterfowl hunting than we do. But it's a fun time for us, and it's sort of a treat to get up there, to go up there. So we had I want to give a very public thank you to our good buddy Tim Nebel, who went on the trip with us and carried a camera the entire time. So if you're friends with us on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, you may have seen some pictures of our trip that we've had put up there that Tim took, and there's some pretty cool shots there. And we've got a lot of good video that we're going to try to put something together to have on Facebook and our YouTube channel and stuff like that. So stay tuned for all of that. And, a lot of these pictures have been posted in our Waterfowler listeners group on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook and you'd like to interact with us through there a little better, a little more private setting where it's just listeners of the show, just search the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast listeners group and request access, and we'll let you come in there and chat with us there. We've got a great group of guys in there right now, and just lots of great discussion and debate on various topics and things like that. So I'm really, really happy with how that's kind of taken shape, and would encourage everyone to to get involved with that if you're active on Facebook. So this week's episode, Dan, is going to be an interesting one, because this is sort of pulling back the curtain for the listeners who, may send us questions, but they don't know the type of questions that we get, from everybody else. So, this week's show isn't really focused on one particular topic. We're going to cover, a gamut of things. And, it's tough when you look at all these questions that we have. We plucked out some of the ones that we thought were good and that, covered things that, other people probably have experienced and would have questions with as well. So this certainly doesn't cover every question that we've ever received, but, when we talked about this, I think that it covers a pretty good cross section of, questions that our listeners might have.
Yeah, usually we just respond to that one person and never really get the rest of the information out to anyone else that listens. So it's a good episode.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think this is going to be a great discussion, and I think a lot of people will be able to pull a lot of this, but a lot out of this. Before we get there, though, let's shift gears and get into our first part of the show, and we're going to profile the Green-Winged Teal this week. And the Green-Winged Teal is just it's a favorite of a lot of people. Great shooting, good table fare. Cover a wide range of North American huntable areas of the country. So let's take a few minutes and go ahead and talk a little bit about the Green-Winged Teal.
All right, the male and the female are very similar in size. They're about 14 inches long and 0.7 to 0.6 pounds, appropriately there. They are the smallest of the North American duck, with a very short neck and a small bill. The male green-winged teal have a chestnut head with an iridescent green to purple patch extending from the eyes to the nape of the neck, and the chest is a pinkish brown with black speckles, and the back, sides, and flanks are vermiculated gray, separated from the chest by a white bar. And the wing coverts are brownish gray with a green speculum. The bill is a dark slate, and the legs and feet are dark gray. And the males have a pretty high-pitched preep sound that they make. And the females, they are a mottled brown with a dark brown line that extends from the bill through the eye. And the bill is a dark gray, and the legs and feet are olive gray to brownish gray. And they're relatively silent, but, if they ever get flushed out, they do issue a quack sound. So breeding, they breed it from Alaska across Canada into the maritime provinces, and then south into central California, Utah, Colorado, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin area. And they prefer small, shallow, permanent ponds near the boreal forest. And the female green-winged teal lay an average of 8 to 9 eggs a year, and I always enjoy shooting at them, but I don't always hit them.
Yeah, they're a tough target for sure. They can fly with the best of them, and as you mentioned, being at about 14 inches, it doesn't give you a lot to shoot at. But as far as migration and wintering of the green-winged teal, they have quite an extensive wintering range. They've been recorded as far north as Alaska and Newfoundland, and even as far south as all the way down to northern South America. They're most abundant in the U.S. Along the Mississippi and the Central Flyways, where the coastal marshes and the rice fields of Louisiana and Texas provide really ideal habitat. There's Texas again. I know, Dan. We got to get down there for sure. Tidal creeks, freshwater marshes. Those are kind of favorites. Of their water habitats that they like. And green-winged teal are common visitors to Central America and the Northern Caribbean, occasionally as far as south as down to Colombia. As far as population is concerned, in 1962, the green-winged teal reached an all-time low of 722,000 birds. But they've grown steadily, thankfully. So in 2009, they reached which was at the time an all-time high of 3.4 million birds. As of 2013, the green-winged teal was surveyed at 3.1 million birds, and then in 2014 back up to 3.4 million birds, which is a 13% increase year over year and 69% over the long-term average as far as population for the green-winged teal. Food, as far as they're concerned, they like, seeds, smartweeds, pondweeds, various grasses, aquatic insects, things of that nature. Basically the types of stuff that you would expect to find in, the mud flats and the shallow waters that they tend to frequent and dabble in. So if you spend any time in the waterfowl blind or in the field, in the marshes, it's likely that at some point during the season you'll see a green-winged teal. There's a lot of September opportunities that are spreading throughout the country. We've talked about that on the show. So the green-winged teal is a great opportunity to get some shooting in early and late throughout the year. All right, Dan. The green-winged teal is a cool duck. It's a fun duck to shoot. And, I see these pictures of these guys down in Texas and Louisiana just pounded them at certain parts of the year. So, quite the success story, though, as far as population and breeding. So, all good news to report for the green-winged teal.
Yeah, that's an impressive comeback for sure. And like I was telling you, I went and watched American Sniper, and it's a great movie. But I'm sitting there and paying, $25, and the first thing they said, when $23.90 something for the 2 tickets and popcorn and a drink with my wife there, and first thing I thought was, well, there's a duck stamp, but just keep. I don't know. I'm getting tight with my budget lately, just wanting to buy gear. So,
it's funny because I'm sort of like you in that regard. Now that you mention it, like, I go through phases where I want to buy gear all the time. It seems like, obviously in the summertime, as we get close to the season, I get that itch to kind of ramp up. I talked about, I think in the very first episode of this show, how the waterfowl catalogs come out and I get the itch and I start, doing that kind of thing. And then like right now, towards the end of the year, where like for me, duck season's done. I've got till mid-February to shoot honkers. And, we were up at Easter Shore, like we've mentioned, and the guy that we were in the blind with the second day was blowing a zinc Naughty by Nature in the maple. And, we got to talking and he let me blow it. And it was like, I think we both can agree, probably the best I've ever sounded on a goose call. And, I came home and, promptly informed my wife that was the purchase that I needed to make. And I'm happy to report that it was that I completed that purchase last night as a Valentine's Day gift. So, but no, I don't know. I keep a constant list almost of things that I want to buy. And it just seems like right now the list is growing. Sitka Gear's got new stuff coming out. A lot of the different waterfowl companies are starting to launch new products at the SHOT Show and things like that. So as we go along here, I'm sure it'll get even worse, but I'm going to try to do my best to be judicious with my waterfowl budget this year, but we'll see how it goes. All right. We got a lot of stuff that we want to get into here in this next segment. So let's not waste any more time and let's roll into the main part of the show. So we decided that this week would be a good week to compile some of the questions that we received from you all, the listeners, and talk about them on the show and share sort of our answers to these questions with all of you. I want to caveat before we start. The answers to these questions are nothing more than Dan and I's opinion and or what we would do in that given situation. By no means do we think that we're, the end-all be-all or the know-it-all on any of these topics. So, I say that being that, we may answer a question one way and you may think something completely different, and that's okay. And neither one of us may be wrong. There's a lot of different ways to go about challenges and things that you see in the field. These are merely our opinions and what we would do. So if you've got something different that you think is a better option, we'd love to hear from you. Cause, I learned just as much from interacting with the guys that listen to this show as they do from us. And, maybe there's part of an answer that we say that you think is good and that you might be able to, employ in your situation, whatever it is. But I just wanted to sort of caveat that because, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on how things should be done. And this is just merely ours. And that's really all I have to say about that. Like Forrest Gump, I guess. All right, Dan, let's start. And, I'll tee it up here for you. So the first question we've got, and I left names off of most of these because I don't know, if they want that put out there or whatever, but most of the guys that, put these questions in will know who they are. But first question, do birds behave differently in different areas in different states? For example, are the same cadences and setups going to work anywhere you hunt throughout the U.S., whatever state it is, whether you're in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Arkansas, Alabama, wherever? Are the same cadences, same setups, all that stuff going to work when you're out hunting waterfowl?
There's a couple of things that come to mind. First, people always say, early in the season, the people up north, they get the opening shots, and then as they migrate south, they get a little tougher. So, yeah, birds might act a little different. They get educated from the time they start heading on their migration path. I think as far as setups, a lot of the setups are going to work. They're always going to be landing into the wind, mixing duck and goose decoys like we talked before. Cadence, it takes me back to the Sean Stahl interview, and, he'll change, if he's running traffic or something, he'll change cadence a couple times until something pulls him, and then whatever pulls them off their path, continue with that. So, I think, it's kind of tough. I think for the most part, it's the same hunting. And we even have people in Australia that say, duck hunting is duck hunting. A lot of the things apply, so we have listeners over there, and that's the comment. So I think to a degree a lot of the things are the same, but you are going to get differences, as far as hunting pressure and educating birds and stuff like that. So what do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you as far as the fundamentals of how you go about hunting waterfowl are going to apply everywhere you go for the most part. Where I disagree a little bit is, conditions can change so much, and so many different things can impact bird behavior that not only may something that you do in one state not work in the next state, it may not work on the next day that you hunt in the same state that you've been hunting. If, like you say, if you get a snow or something like that puts stress in their life, like you may need to do a different tactic, that you don't do in, certain states, that kind of thing. I would sort of echo what you said with what Sean told us, for example, when you're calling in your cadence, some days a simple cluck is just, a couple clucks, just sort of some, ground talk, real easy, bring them right in. And then there's other days where you gotta pound them on the call. You gotta burn it up all the way into the hole. And, I'm sure you have both of those situations in every state, that applies everywhere. But it's more about which one of those techniques need to be applied on that day and what's going to work in that particular situation. So, I think that yes, in general, all of the similar techniques and tactics will work, but they will need to be fine tuned, and, you'll need to pay attention to what's going on that particular day to truly be successful. But, you don't want to like completely abandon what's worked for you in the past, I don't think. Anything else to add on that one, you think?
No, a lot of guys travel and they'll hunt the same way in different states. We have a couple buddies that go to North Dakota every year, and they absolutely just hammer the ducks and geese when they go out there. So, they're using the same tactics that they use here. So as far as that's concerned, if you're doing your scouting and finding out what the birds are doing and how they're acting, then, you get to where they want to be and do your thing.
Yep. I'm not going to disagree with you there. All right, let's go on to the next question. Premium or super premium ammo? Basically, is the more expensive ammo worth the money?
No. No. Nope. And I feel I'm semi-embarrassed about this, but I was using a Kicks High Flyer choke, and I bought blindside when we were down there. The blindside, well, actually, the heavy shot was actually not firing the box that I had. So, our first swing at cans, I pull up and, I'm denting primers and they're not going off. So, those weren't expensive, but then I went to Blindside, and the Blindside, I actually wrote this in our listeners group. The Blindside is not designed to be used with a ported choke. So with the Kicks High Flyer, I was using that, and literally when we were goose hunting, there was a cripple on the ice, and I shot, and I mean, it just wasn't. There's no power behind it.
You basically hit you basically hit the goose with your wad, and not even
hit it with the wad, and it came bouncing back towards the blind. So, it's not designed for it. I was not aware of that. I knew that Black Cloud had to be specific, but not the Blindside. But they have pretty much the same design. So, we went to I went to the Winchester, just cheap Winchester that you've been using, and it was devastating after that. So, I'm going cheap from now on. That's my point of view.
Yeah. Boy, ammo is there's a lot that goes into it, and I'm not a ballistic expert, and so I don't have any scientific proof to back up anything that I'm about to say. But we've used heavy steel. In the past, I've used, a bunch of different ammo, Black Cloud, all that stuff. First and foremost, I don't like spending $25 or more a box on shells. I just don't. And I know when, I've been shooting the cheap Winchester, I don't even know what it's called, the one with the DU logo on the front of it. I get it from Rogers Sporting Goods, $99 a case, free shipping. For 10 boxes, you're breaking it down about, $10 a box. You can't beat that. They go bang every time I squeeze the trigger. And when I shoot them, it feels like a better round. It feels like it's more, I don't even know what the right terms are, but it feels more compressed. It feels more powerful. And I feel like I get better knockdown power with them. Same twos, 1550, feet per second, whatever. It works for me. Now, having said that, have I seen guys make great shots with, using heavy metal and that kind of stuff? Definitely. I think you can absolutely kill birds with, heavy steel or heavy metal and Black Cloud and Blindside without question. I think that they're as effective, if not more effective. But my point is, before you start buying expensive ammunition, thinking that that's going to be the silver bullet that's knocking birds out of the sky for you, I'd look at some other things first. Oftentimes, if you're having problems hitting birds, it's not the ammo's fault, likely. It's mostly that, you're probably not getting your cheek down on the stock of your gun, or you're not getting a good lead or a good swing, those sorts of things. I would tend to look at flaws in other areas before I would start to blame my waterfowl ammunition, unless I physically see things like we saw happen to you, or, your denting primers and rounds aren't going off and that sort of thing. I don't think you need to spend, $5 a shell on heavy shot to kill ducks and geese. If you do that, will you kill ducks and geese? Definitely. If you're putting your cheek down on the shotgun, you're getting a good, sight picture, and you're getting good leads and all that kind of stuff. You're going to kill birds, and, that's all great. So if it's worth it or not, that's up to you. You know what I mean? If that's what you need to do to feel confident in your ability to go out and take birds, then by all means, who am I going to tell you any different? But for me, I don't need to do that. I can spend $10 a box with shells and be as confident as I possibly can be in the field. I would put those rounds up against anything that I've shot, and, the results have been there. Check your choke tubes, make sure your choke is what you should be using for your situation, and, patterns well with your ammo of choice, those sort of things. Check all those other boxes and make sure that, you're doing what you're supposed to. Then if you're unhappy with the performance, consider going up. But that's where I stand on it. Sounds like we're pretty much in a similar, camp there. So I don't really think that there's any more that we need to sort of belabor there. Do you?
Like you said, it's up to you if it makes you more confident, and confidence is key. So do what you want to do, but don't bypass the cheap stuff just because you think it's crappier.
I agree with you. All right, next question. train your dog yourself or send it to a trainer and spend the money?
You know what? I would say it depends. If you have the time and knowledge to do it yourself, then, go ahead and give it a shot. I'm sure that there's nothing more gratifying than doing it yourself and seeing a dog work. I did a little bit with my dog. I probably should have sent her to someone and, paid for it, because after, our guy down on the Eastern Shore is working his dog, just the command and, he bought this dog from out of a newspaper. It wasn't, a special breed or anything like that. And he trained the dog by himself. And you can't get much better than what this dog was doing. It was very impressive. So, just it's probably a personal decision. If you have the time and, like I said, the energy and the knowledge, like, you have to be out there every day working on it. And if you're not, then you might want to look into spending the money.
I don't own a dog that hunts. As I've said on the show before, my dog just enjoys getting ear infections and doing other weird stuff. So he doesn't hunt. But I think it all comes down to really what you want in a hunting dog. I think back to when we had Barton Ramsey on the show of Southern Oak Kennels. He talked about the different programs and stuff that they offer, and it's really what you want in a dog. And if you want your dog to be not only a hunter, but, field trials and things like that, you may need some help. If you want to teach your dog to do some basic things in the field and fetch up a couple ducks and stuff like that, yeah, it's probably likely that you could get that accomplished in the backyard with some YouTube research and that sort of thing. But I think that if you want an elite level dog, it's going to be more challenging to do that on your own, because, like you said, the time commitment and the patience and the facilities, and, do you have a space where you can do, 200-yard blind retrieves, with your dog? I mean, do you have that at your disposal? If you do, great. Some people don't have that. So I think you need to consider all of the things that go into training a dog, and sort of take a look at what you want your dog, the finished product, to be. And, if you think it's going to be a little more than you're capable to do on your own, I would say it's probably worth to reach out, because, like you said, hunting with a dog that is polished and under control is just a complete joy. And it's such a great experience. And there's few things that are worse than when you're hunting and, you got birds working your spread, the dog takes off and runs through the decoys. You know what I mean? That can be very frustrating. So, I think it's all about kind of evaluating what you want and, putting together a plan of attack to achieve it. And maybe you don't send your dog to a complete start to finish program with a trainer, but maybe you send them for a couple portions or facets of the training program that you can't accomplish on your own, that kind of thing. That's probably my best guess. But again, I don't have a dog, so I can't really say for certain, but that's sort of just my gut feeling on that. Okay. Next question for you, Daniel, is tipping your guide on a guided hunt. What's customary?
And we kind of struggle with this, because we assume that it is the 20%. We never ask them, but we always go with the 20%. And then, whenever we're having lunch or something like that, we'll buy a couple like the beer chips for them, because that they go there after a long day in the field. So, but if they're on their phone and they're not paying attention to birds, or if they're doing something else, texting their girlfriend the whole time, then I wouldn't tip them the 20%. I think the 20s I think 20% is very fair. And if you have a good hunt, that's probably a good customary tip.
Yeah, I like 20%. That's kind of what we came to agreement with in our group. And, there's not a lot out there that tells you what you're supposed to do in that kind of, situation. It's not like you go to a restaurant and they, calculate it for you and put you, the, the 15, the 18 and the 20% tip on the receipt, so you can pick whatever. Again, it all depends on how your experience and what you think is reasonable and fair for, I think I think at the top end, if you have a great experience and you really enjoy it, I think 20% is plenty. Um, if you don't have such a great experience, go a little bit less, but, um, you know, you have to factor it into the whole cost of the hunt. So, part of it might be correlated to what you can do and what you can, swing financially, that kind of thing. So, regardless, I do think tipping is necessary. And I've touched on this in the parting shot. These guys work hard for you out there. I mean, setting 2 trailers of decoys like they did for us, is just, it's a lot of work, a lot of time and effort goes into that, and, our second morning, the guide's motor wouldn't fire up. So he's out there in the boat with oars, setting decoys, breaking ice, doing everything we needed to do to be successful. And, I appreciate that. That doesn't go unnoticed. So, I think 20% is good. And, I feel comfortable with that, but again, it's up to you. But if you have a good hunt, I would think, you want to take care of your guide.
And I was going to say, it's not even about the kills. If your guide is working his tail off and maybe it's just an off day, like, that everyone has, but, I know talking to the guides, there's a lot of guys that can't hit the broadside of a barn. So if you're one of those guys that the birds are in front of you and you're shooting at them, even though you're not hitting them, if they're working their tail off to get them in front of you, that should be considered a good job by the guide.
Definitely. All they can do is, give you shooting opportunities, and you got to seal the deal. So, but again, it shouldn't be about kills regardless. I mean, there's going to be times when birds just don't work. Obviously, it's called hunting. You know what I mean? It's the way the deal works. But if they do everything else that's within their control to your satisfaction, then that's where you should be. Then, that's what I would consider a successful hunt. All right. So we had a pretty lengthy email come in from a guy who listens to the show, and he had a lot of different, parts of his question. So I think we're going to actually use a couple different ones here. And the first one was, about some experiences that he had hunting public ground and, a spot that he had, kind of picked out and he thought was off the beaten path a little bit and sort of a secret spot. And sure enough, he shows up, to hunt, and there's somebody already there. So one part of his question was, what's the minimum distance that you would set up from another hunter when hunting on public land?
I think it's a great question. And I think, I would say a lot has to deal with what the land actually looks like. Are you hunting a lake? Are you hunting a river? Are you hunting fields? I would say in our situation here, any public land, like say cut cornfields that we can hunt, we don't have the 1,000, 2,000 acre cornfields. Most of ours are maybe 100, 200 acres. In that situation, I probably wouldn't hunt in the same field as them, unless it, depending on the situation, I might, if, just scouting and I know where the birds are going to be compared to them, I might set up, but most of the time I'll pick another spot. If we're hunting on a lake and, if you're on one side of a point and they're on the other, you can be fairly close and be working totally different birds. And I don't see that as a problem at all. I think you could probably speak to river hunting a little more than what I could.
Well, Virginia is unique in the fact that we have these really strict blind laws that you legally cannot hunt within 500 yards of a licensed blind in certain parts of the state, along the river east of 95. And, and that includes blinds that aren't being hunted. So it could be empty and you still can't hunt within 500 yards of it. This is good and bad. It's good because it keeps the pressure spread out a little bit. It's bad because you can't just go out there and hunt wherever you want, like in public ground. These are privately licensed blinds in public water. So it's a little bit different, but I've hunted some walk-in public ground, swampy areas, stuff like that. And I've dealt with this a little bit and, it's tough. It's really tough, but I don't think you get hung up on a yardage or something like that. I think it's more to what, like you said, depending on the terrain, just think, if I was the one sitting in there, if I was already in the spot and someone else is coming in like I am right now, where would be the line? Like, how close would I be comfortable with them being to me if I'm set up there already? If it's 50 yards, I think you're probably crazy, but whatever. It's probably, if you can get out of sight from them, I think is a good idea. At minimum, get far enough away for safety reasons. You don't want to have anybody, getting rained on with pellets and that kind of thing. It's a more common courtesy thing and safety thing for me. It's public ground. Everyone has rights to be there and is entitled to get out there and hunt. But I think a little common courtesy goes a long way. And, there's only so much you can do. Some of these, public ground down in Arkansas, you see pictures of these guys lined up at the boat ramp. You're going to be hunting in closer proximity to guys. It's just the way it is. But I think that, trying to give enough elbow room at the table for everyone to be able to work a few birds, be mindful if they got birds working, don't call it their swings and that kind of thing. Just, a little courtesy here, a little courtesy there should be fine. And, I think some of these backwood areas, if you're 200 yards away, it's probably far enough if it's the conditions are right. Now, if I'm hunting the river, 200 yards would seem really close to me, because I tell you 500 yards at times seems pretty close. But that's the water setup for me. It's going to be different for you, but I would just say use your common courtesy and use your head. And, if you set up and you look down and you'd be like, yeah, it's probably a little too tight, just, slide down a little bit further, that kind of thing if you can. So,
do you have any more info on that question? If there was any more background to it, where he was, like what he was hunting?
I don't recall exactly what it was. I think it took me as it was like a walk-in type, maybe back creek or wetlands type hunt.
And I think, this is a good situation too, where you could, go up and talk to the guy. Maybe you can hunt with him, and, that's a new hunting partner. Or, you might find out real quick that they don't want you anywhere close to them, depending on the situation. So, going up and talking is a good way to figure it out too.
Yeah, and he actually mentioned he actually did. I hadn't written this part down, but it's another part of his question was, what would we do in that situation if someone was in our spot that we wanted to go to? I told him I'd probably just move, a little bit further away and try to set up at another spot. But the other option is going up and talking to them. He chose not to do that. I would, most of the time I probably wouldn't do that either. I would just try to probably hunt somewhere else and see how it went. But, you definitely can go up and talk to them and, see what they have to say. But, most of the time I'm worried about getting set up in time and getting to my spot and try to figure it out. So, if I see somebody there, I just move on. I'm already thinking, where can I go next? But, it pays to be up early. And, if that's something that you're running into, unfortunately, you just got to get there earlier and, be the first guy to the spot and hope that they don't set up 75 yards down the river from you. But, the other part of his question is, Dan, that kind of led to him, I think, not talking to the guy and deciding to just pack up and head out, was he wanted to know how we deal with, difficult waterfowlers, guys that have, old timers and egos and things that think that a lot of, newbies are all Duck Dynasty wannabes and that kind of stuff. We've seen a lot of that lately. There's a lot of that goes around. For whatever reason, there's just this massive hatred in some circles towards Duck Dynasty for whatever reason. But what do you think about that, Dan, in particular, with the whole stigma around newbies and the Duck Dynasty craze and all that stuff?
I think it's sad and unfortunate. I think there's a lot of people that want to get into the sport and do it right, but they don't have anyone to show them the way. And even it's we've been hunting for a while now, and I don't even know what the Duck Dynasty is. I guess it's the sky busting and just doing whatever you want to do. I don't know. It's not a slob hunter. The Duck Dynasty guys aren't drinking beer and shooting everything in sight. They're good, ethical people. So, whatever that is. But we got we even got called out on one of our pictures and saying thanks Duck Dynasty because we had face paint on. But as we don't like pie facing ducks, and if it helps us blend in, then so be it. So I mean, in that situation though, I don't know. I mean, if you show an interest, if you're just gonna go and trying to steal a spot from a guy, or being combative towards him, then yeah, he's probably gonna not be very nice to you. But if these old time hunters, if they know that you're trying to learn the sport, and if they have something to offer you, then I've really never ran into an old guy that wouldn't give me the time of day. A lot of the old timers, I'd like to talk about the good old days, and they'll tell stories for days. So but then I mean, you will run into some that maybe those are the Duck Dynasty people that they're talking about. I don't know. It's tough. You run into all kinds of people. You just have to be aware of their situation as well.
Yeah, the Duck Dynasty wannabe thing just baffles me. I don't know, like you said, I don't know what that means. Is it because they wear face paint to like be concealed in the woods and stuff? And if you paint your face, that is some sort of a negative connotation to be associated with, the guys from Duck Commander and Duck Dynasty. I mean, I don't understand it. Like, those guys are, incredibly successful in the waterfowl industry. I mean, yeah, their show, whether you like it or not, I don't watch it. I take it or leave it. But I mean, if nothing else, it's brought positive light to the waterfowl industry. We're surrounded by anti-hunters. Every time you turn around, somebody wants to take away a right to hunt and a privilege to hunt. It's nice to have a big voice, at the table advocating for waterfowl and outdoor groups. I don't see where that's a negative. You may not like the show, and that's fine, but they have a platform, and as far as I can tell, they've done a really good job to be a positive influence and a positive perception of what the outdoor industry is. So, yeah, I don't have any problems with it, and I don't get the whole Duck Dynasty wannabe thing. I don't understand it. But if you've ever given someone a hard time because they're a new waterfowler and they might not know what they're doing, and and they sound like crap on a duck call, or they got their decoys set up all screwy or whatever, shame on you. I mean, you started somewhere too, and so did I, and so did you, Dan, and we still don't know everything there is to know about hunting, far from it. But what we do know is because we went out and screwed it up, and now we're doing it, we're learning from that, and we're getting better at it. And that's what these guys are going to do too. So instead of trying to be a jerk to them and call them Duck Dynasty wannabes, or, thinking that you're for whatever reason somewhat better than them, how about you talk to them and say like, hey, this is what I've learned and this is how I can help you out. And, offer them, suggestion here, there. And if they take it, it's up to, take it or leave it. It's up to them. But, I don't understand the ego that a lot of times comes with, a lot of guys in the outdoor, arena and stuff like that. I don't think I ever will. But on the flip side, I've met some of the, best people that I've ever met and known through waterfowl hunting. And, there are some incredibly great people that want nothing more than to help other people have success in the field. And those companies are the ones that I support, and they're going to get my business, all the time. And, I don't use any Duck Commander calls or anything like that. I don't have any of their gear, but, I fully support all of those guys because they've just been nothing but a positive influence on waterfowl hunting in the industry. So like you, I don't get it, and I probably never will. But that's where I stand on it. And, I don't really know what else to say about it.
I will say, like, most of the people that we talk to are, they're, if you've made it, if you're a Sean Stahl, if you're Kelly Powers, like that, they want to help people. And, they're, if, I don't know if they'd like me saying this, they're big time, they are very well known and, just great guys. They're out there to help. I think the people that are making the Duck Dynasty jokes or whatever you want to do, if you want to call Duck Dynasty wannabes or something, if someone paints their face and you're making fun of them, saying that they're a crappy hunter, you got some jealousy issues, I think. Or you're trying to be big time and you're not there and you know it, so you're trying to put other people down. And, if, like you said, shame on you. And I feel bad for him more than, calling us Duck Dynasty. Thanks, Duck Dynasty, for us painting our face. So, whatever, go have a good hunt. And, I'm going to keep painting my face. I enjoy it. It's part of my hunt.
That's really what it all boils down to. I mean, whether you're hunting public ground, private ground with an outfitter, I don't care. Whatever you got to do to have fun, that's what you need to be doing. And if painting your face is fun, paint it up. That's how I feel about it. Enjoy yourself. Nobody out there should be able to tell you anything different. Certainly I'm not going to. So whatever it takes for you to have a good time, by all means have at it and keep doing it. But I don't want to belabor this anymore because I don't like talking about stuff like this, and it just gets me fired up. So I want to go ahead and move on a little bit. And we had another really good question that came almost around the same time that last email did. And the question was, how many different types of duck calls do you carry? And does it vary depending on the different times of the year or where you're hunting?
I carry a double reed mallard, and I think the Buck Gardner, like 6-in-1 call. I think it's Buck Gardner, but,
the little whistle.
Yeah. And I do feel like I'm going to move away from, well, not away from them, but add maybe a wood duck call into my arsenal as well. Just for more of a mellow, just because I've expanded some of the areas that I've hunted, and I could use a, not the acrylic, not a crisp acrylic sound, and, get a little more mellow with it. So, I think I'll probably be in the 2 to 3 range here pretty soon, but I've always hunted with, 1 and the whistle. So I might go to the 2 and the 6-in-1 call, but, it seems to work. I think it's plenty.
Yeah, I run a double reed, and I have the whistle. I carry it. I don't use it. I'm probably not going to carry it for much longer. But for me, I don't call much at ducks really. Where I hunt, every 500 yards, if there's a mallard flying down the coast, every 500 yards, you hear someone, just highball at him as he's flying by. I choose not to do that. I choose to use more of the visual calls like Sean Stahl was talking about, motion, flagging, mojo decoys, that kind of stuff. I will call at times out of desperation when I think the birds are just no longer going to give us a look if I don't, and I have nothing to lose by calling at them. But I try to be a little more quiet. If I'm hunting private ground where it's more secluded, I will call a little bit more to see if the birds will be receptive to it. But typically I don't call very much, so I don't need to have a bunch of different calls going on. Now, having said that, when we were hunting up at Eastern Shore last weekend, our guide was doing nothing but highballing at these cans, and they were responding really well. And if I would have heard that, I would have never guessed in a million years that the ducks would have been working and responding as well as they had been. Maybe I need to do more of that. I don't know, but it's just for me, I prefer to be a little quieter than I am the other way. Now, when you're talking goose hunting, though, this wasn't part of the question, but this is just to kind of tap onto that. I do think that there is some validity having a couple different calls for your goose setup. Obviously, if you're hunting wide open areas, heavy wind days where you need to penetrate that and really carry far, you want that volume, that loud crack. You need to be able to reach out. Those days when it's quiet, there's not as much wind, or you're hunting around, treed fields like we hunt a lot of times, or, over water. You want to be a little softer. You don't want as loud, and you don't want to echo all the way down through the woods. That's not natural. So maybe a call in the maple or a hedgewood type call, something that you can get a little mellow or a little more mellow, kind of like you were talking about with the duck call. So I do think that there is some validity to having multiple goose calls at times. Some calls you can tune up real well to cover the entire range. Others you can't, or you may not have the skill set to do that. So you may need to tune up 2 different calls a little bit differently to help you get out that really high highs for those migrators or those lessers. And then you have another call tuned down to the middle and the mid range to get those low, big resident honkers type of stuff. So I think it depends on your skill set. And I think it depends on the type of bird you're hunting. If you're going to be hunting traffic and that kind of stuff, you got to get loud. You want to have the calls on your lanyard to be able to do that. So yeah, it might change a little bit. Primarily for me, I'm carrying 2 goose calls and a duck call, a double reed duck call for me. Anything else there, Dan?
No, I think it's pretty good.
Okay. The last question that we're going to do here to wrap up this segment is actually a phone-in question from Drew in Southern Florida. So we'll go ahead and let Drew broach the next question for us.
Hey guys, this is Drew Walter down here in South Florida. Had a couple questions. One, I heard you talking about sealing your waders. What are you using for that? Because I've only got one pair of waders and I'm always worried I'm going to spring a leak, stuff like that. So a little preventative maintenance would be great. Also, what to do when you just can't find the duck? Keep coming with the good stuff. Look forward to the next podcast.
All right, Dan. Drew wants to know, how do you deal or how do you find ducks when you just can't find them? What are you doing? And he also wants to know a little bit about wader maintenance and kind of what you do when to seal a leak in your waders. Which I don't know if you've ever had a leak in your waders or not, but I feel like you'd be able to address this topic a little bit.
Well, let's do the first part. Finding ducks. I'd put the wheels on the pavement, man. That's the first thing I would do. I'd be driving, getting up early, eyes in the sky, scouting, looking where they've been in past years. We've talked about going to big water, and sometimes you have to get off the beaten path, get out of the truck and do some walking, get back in some potholes and try and find different areas like that. And that's, if it's in the middle of the hunting season and they're getting blasted off lakes and they're moving back into, some flooded timber or something like that, get up one morning, skip, you can even take your gun, do some jump shooting if you want to, but, get on, put your boots on and do a little bit of walking. I think that's a good way to find them. Another way, do your, online research, do the DU migration app. Trav was hitting that up the entire time like we expected. And, I think it paid off. It calmed him down a little bit, but, you can see where they've been moving and sometimes you might just have a lull in the season. So they might not be around for a week, but it depends where you're at and what has happened in the past in that area. So do you want to talk on that and then go to waders or?
Yeah, I'll just chime in real quick on that. I think, Logan with Heartland Waterfowl talked about it. We asked him essentially that exact question. And like he said, go to the big water. I think that's really, the best way to start, go to your biggest water holes and see what kind of ducks are there. If they get up and fly out to feed, follow them and see where they go. Don't discount the pairs and the small groups. You may say, oh, there's nothing flying. I saw 4 ducks all morning. Well, those 4 ducks may have been going to the mother load of all ducks that that were coming off of a different roost that you didn't know about and was going to, hit the same food source. So if you're that desperate, don't overlook a single duck. If you get one, follow it, see what they're going to do. Another thing that you can do is, if it's in season and you're out there in the morning and you're not hunting and you're scouting and you're hearing shooting in certain areas, drive to that type of area, not to try to encroach on their spot, but see if you have birds like flying out of roost spot locations there. Because if there's a big roost spot over there, wherever the shooting's coming from, some of the birds that are coming from that roost might be going to that feed hole that those guys are hunting. But then there might be other birds that aren't going there and they might be going to other spots and there might be able to be places that you can get access to and that kind of stuff. So, those are kind of desperate measure type moves. But, if you're talking about, you just can't find anything, those are things that you can try, but.
Yep. All right. And, let's go to the wader maintenance.
Yeah. Tell me how to do it, bub.
And, all right. Well, first of all, whenever you're storing your waders, they shouldn't be folded up. You should try and lay them flat And I even saw when I bought my new pair of waders this year, you shouldn't for a long period of time hang them from their boots, because the boot and the pant can get separated. So you can get leaks in there if you hang them too long. So that's a little tip with that. Sealing leaks, I don't know if I should talk about it because I wasn't real successful, but it was a pretty hefty hole that I had. There were a few different things that I used. They have the patches, the wader patches, that were actually really good and stopped leaks for me. And then on top of that, I actually found some shoe goo that is for like athletic shoes, and it seals for like pitchers and stuff like that. But I put the patches on and then sealed it with the shoe goo, and it was good to go, like brand new. So that's what I used. I know there's a lot of waterproof parts out there, and I did do the in and outside of the waders where the hole was at.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I didn't use shoe goo, but I used like a liquid substance of some type that I bought at like Dick's Sporting Goods. It's, made for patching waders, but I did the same thing. I did, you want to do the outside, obviously, because, that's the water's going to press against that, and it's easier to seal in that regard. It's not, pushing against it. But I did the inside as well, because you can really identify seams and where, where there might be trouble spots. And, I would just coat all of those seams. I had a leak in my wader in September that I was able to patch by using liquid just on the outside of the wader. And then, it was like right around the time that I tripped on the sequoia in the river and took a swim. It was right about that time my waders just started leaking like a sieve. And I mean, literally I have 3 active leaks going in my waders right now. So, I mean, I've had these waders for 3 or 4 years, so they've had a good run, and I think it's about time that I put them out to pasture. But, I think that once the waders start breaking down and they fail, you're just going to start having more problems. So it's probably time to turn the page with those waders. If you, get a hole because you puncture them on a, piece of timber, or they get snagged on a nail in your blind or something like that, that's probably more worthwhile to get aggressive on the patching scenario and try to, get them squared away that way. But if you're getting multiple leaks on the regular, you're probably just chasing your tail and better off to kind of turn the page and move on, because they can be challenging to not only patch, but just find the leak. Sometimes that's the hardest part, is finding where the water's coming in, and then getting the patch to adhere and keep the water out is a challenge. So, anything else on any of the questions that we covered, Dan, that you wanted to add before we wrap up that segment?
I just really hate leaky waders, especially when it's cold.
Yeah,
man, it's just awful.
Yeah, there's not much worse than that. But, we enjoy getting the questions from all of you guys that listen to the show. If you have any other questions that we haven't addressed here, or maybe, something we said here sparked a new question, feel free to, shoot us the question over via, Facebook, Twitter, or, email, info@hpoutdoors.com, whatever you prefer. And, we do our best to try to get back to you quickly and offer our 2 cents. And you can either tell us that makes sense, or you can tell us that we're idiots, and that's okay too. So we hope you enjoyed talking about these questions with us, and we look forward to maybe doing this again in the future when we get a few more questions kind of built up. We'll maybe do this again down the road if you guys like that. But hope you enjoyed it. All right, Dan, then we're kind of here at the back end of episode 22. And I think it's been a really good show. A lot of good stuff we've covered here. But as I like to do, I wanted to just see if there's anything else that you wanted to add for this week's show before we kind of get into the parting shot and wrap it up.
No, I mean, I think it was a great idea for an episode. Like we said, we get the emails and we respond back to the people. But, there's a lot of good questions there that could help a few different people out, I feel like, or, multiple people. And like I always say, we appreciate the correspondence, any emails or phone calls. it keeps us fresh and keeps us, it gives us enjoyment in doing what we do to feel like we're helping out a little bit. So keep it coming, and we'll keep putting the episodes out.
Yep. And, this is the time of year where seasons are winding down and, other things are starting to take priority as the hunting season wraps up. But we're going to plug along with the podcast and tackled various topics and things. So, make sure that just because the season's over, that, if you got things that you'd like to bring to the show and offer for us, we would certainly, be willing to hear that. And, I should have done this earlier in the show, and I wrote it down and I overlooked it, but, I want to do it now. And being that it was so late in the show, I'll probably do it again next week for all of you that listen. But I owe a very, very, very special thank you, to a listener to this show that has helped me out, a great deal with, my fly fishing pursuits in the way of gear and things like that. Ryan Dubé, I really appreciate, all of the things that you've done for me and helping me kind of get started in fly fishing and that new obsession that I'm sure will take over my summer and springtime and probably into the fall a little bit too. But Ryan, thank you so much. I certainly appreciate it, and I definitely look forward to getting out, and doing some fly fishing. So just wanted to say thank you to him. Okay, I think that's it. Let's go ahead and get into this week's parting shot. So unfortunately, this week's parting shot is a melancholy parting shot. Dan and I recently worked together for the funeral of a dear friend of both of ours whose mother recently passed away. And when things like this happen, it's always difficult, but at the same time, I can't help but think about how important the time is that you get to spend with your loved ones, whether it be in the field or whatever you enjoy to do. So the message this week is, go out, hug your wife, hug your husband, hug your mom, hug your dad, hug your kids. Tell them how much you love them. Tell them how much they mean to you. It's just, life's so precious. It's so important to let people in your life that you care about know how much you care about them, because you just never know when, the next time might be the last time. So, it sucks. I'm going to be honest with you. It's hard and it was difficult. You hate seeing your best friends go through things like that, but, just take the time, hug your family, tell them you love them, and, don't overlook that and make time for that kind of stuff. All right, that's going to do it for this week of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed episode 22 as we took some of your questions and we profiled the Green-Winged Teal. You guys can reach out to us at hpoutdoors.com or across all of the social media platforms. If you haven't, we would appreciate you going to iTunes and filling out a 5-star rating and review for us. And fill out our survey if you get a chance and sign up for the newsletter. We got great information coming to you via that channel. So until next time, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.